how you doing? Well, I did a lot of work and shot a lot of video of it too, but it's mainly kind of stuff that is not that great for video. Welding and inside boring, really. So that means that this video will be a lot of me talking and explaining what's going on. So stick with me here. We're about to make a lot of progress and see 2 months worth of weekends in 15 minutes. Got my parts preheated over here because they're heavy sections. Good and preheated all right. There's the spacer. Here's the strap. You're not going to see a lot of this because it's just going to be a lot of just bright lights. Sorry. Maybe one of these days we'll get some apparatus where I can do arc shots. But you can see here what my setup is and the whole idea of the welding jig. The toolmaker's buttons here are to kind of position it left and right. Welding the first time around did not go so well. I was dealing with a lot of surface forming porosity that I think had to do with my regulator and my torch angle too. I guess I'm learning something. I don't know what I'm learning, but I am learning it. The good thing about the welding jig is that it holds the parts right there, although it's a little tough to get them out. You know, it's a good thing this is burning hot, otherwise I'd have a hard time getting it off of this thing. Well, there's the first one. Just look at that porosity. I've been fighting it the whole time. And I don't want to say that I've got a bad tank of gas, because that's, you know, because that's a real cop-out. Never been like this. Well, there it is. Don't know what to say about it yet, but I know it's not scrap. When I figure out what's going on with what's going on, then I'll come in and fix what I got here. And what that meant was grinding out the welds and making a new webbing, in fact. This one here you can see I've made out of a piece of round stock and milled 4 flats on it. Alright, I ground out that crazy spot and sharpened my tungstens, and let's get back to it. And that came out alright. Got the porosity licked for sure. Now let's do this side. And here we have the welded Arbor supports. I'm really glad this part of the job is over. Welding is not what I'm good at, although I think I learned a lot from welding this stuff. Here is my setup for milling the grooves for the screw clamps. It's the welding jig, and I've clamped it to an angle plate on the other side. I've had to move the vertical head over and then tram it again, and it helps if you have a large square when you're doing that. Everything on my setup is good and tight. I sharpened my boring tool. The boring head is set to 3/4. Clamped my work light to the table, and it's going nowhere. So now let's get to work. like last time, we'll finish the cut with a 3/4 drill, for lack of a better solution, to get the last little bit that the boring bar can't reach down into. And there we have it. 2 slots for these screw clamps. Now let's finish this up and get them welded in. We're always told to be comfortable when we're welding, and with that in mind, I did something that might have been a little drastic, but I removed this section of the shelf right below my welding table. What that lets me do is, now I can sit in at the table and have my arms out like this, and that's really comfortable for me. I can't stand having to work on an edge like this, and sometimes it causes mistakes to happen. The screw clamps are cleaned up. The Arbor support sleeve is all cleaned up. I've got my welds prep bevel in there. Let's weld this thing. Okay, that's it for welding in these 2 screw clamps. It came out way better than the last welds I did. I think I fixed whatever problem I had with my gas apparatus. And here we are, finally finished with the welding. This one came out a lot better looking, although they're both really gonna work out fine. Now we can get back to what I'm good at, which is boring these out. Here's the setup for boring the overarm sleeve. I've got it figured out. I wanted to start this out with a hole saw because that seemed like an okay way to avoid having to turn all of 2 inches and 1/4 into chips. But this part is 3 inches and 1/8 long, and no hole saw I have can do this in one pass. I don't want to flip this over, and also I tried this before and the chips get clogged in there, and you spend more time trying to get chips out than it actually does cutting. You know what the nice thing about changing your mind is? You can keep on doing it. Well, I'm back to trying to use the hole saw, and it's getting me somewhere so far. My original plan didn't work out right, so we're going back to plan A, actually. Problem I'm up against when I'm using the hole saw, making a hole this deep, of course, is the chip evacuation just kind of stops completely once you get to a certain depth. And I was using our shop air right here with a vacuum cleaner also in there, and that's going to be how I have to go on. And I'm getting pretty close to the end, so let's keep on going here. I've got 2 inches and 18 thousandths, so I've got like what, 232 thousandths left to take off, so we're gonna let the good times roll and bore this thing out here. I'm in the process now of checking my work, and I've been measuring it with an inside micrometer along the way, but I'd like to be a little double sure, so I made a little gauge. This is a piece of aluminum, and I know you don't make gauges out of aluminum, but this is 1/1000th over 2 inches and a quarter, and if this goes down with some drag, then I'll know that I'm on my mark. Get a little film of oil around this. I'll clean out the bore. This is about 7/8 of an inch. Okay, that's about clean. Let's see what we get now. That's good so far. It knocks around because the finish of the bore, of course, is not very good. Not very smooth itself. It gets a little tight there. And then it moves some more. Let's see where, that might be the bottom of it. Let's see what we get here. Now I'm at like 2 1/16. So that's like 3 inches now. Okay, I'd say we're there. If this thing went that far, then we got it. And of course now it's all scratched up, but yeah, okay, that's good. I think this was a good test. I'm secure to take this thing out of the setup. So we checked this with that gauge I made, and so I'm sure it'll fit on the overarm, but we've got to give it a shot anyway, see what the real world thing is going to be like. That's great. It's not too tight. It's not too much of a rocking around. I can feel just a little bit, but again, we made the bore about 1/1000th of an inch oversized. Now I'm ready to do this same operation on the other part. I have the part all clamped in, and I was about ready to go boring it like the first one. I think this time I'll use magic instead. Well, alright. That was a lot easier. Faster, too. I don't know why I didn't think of that in the first place. And naturally, the fit-up is very good. Just a little bit of play, which is what I wanted. Now we're ready to go on and make our saw cut so that it may clamp to the overarm. You might remember from the last video in the series on the Boyce Crane vertical bandsaw, which we're parked at right here, that's the first time I mentioned I wanted to make an overarm support for the Nichols mill. And this is precisely what that was all about. We've got to make a cutout here in the part so that when we go to clamp this overarm sleeve to the overarm, that it will actually do something. You can't just put screws in this with no cut, tighten them, and then expect it to hold to the overarm. You must make a cut in it. So what was happening there was as the saw blade was coming through the last little bit of the cut in the bottom, the whole rest of this, sort of ring-shaped sleeve, springs together and just grabs the blade. But it's out, and now I can go on to make the cut that's right next to it. So there are my eyeglasses. You know, this one really machined differently on the saw. Let's go over to the mill and see if it really is as different as I think it is. So, will this one go on nice and easy? Let's see. Yeah. Okay, and you know what that means? That means that all I might need to do for the other one that is not going on easy is, like I was doing, maybe torch it, maybe get it to this, you know, kind of straw color. That should be plenty. I've gotten it to a light blue color now. I let it just cool overnight, and I had to do some sanding and some deburring and stuff. But now it will go on. Sometimes with a little rocking to get it on, but it'll just slide on. We've got some screws on there too. There we are. That's not going anywhere. Yeah. Well, that's more like it. Sometimes you gotta make it yourself, because this was not doing it. Thanks for sticking around. I know it was a long video, but we got a lot done. We are so close to getting this thing finished and getting that thing to be a horizontal mill again.